Hi, and welcome back to the HSP Connection podcast with me, Robbie Lee.
And me, Philippa Robinson.
This is where we share our stories, our insights, and strategies to help fellow highly sensitive people navigate their own path to living a fulfilling and meaningful life.
The first 10 episodes that we're recording are conversations that we first had over on my solo podcast, Meeting of Minds. So we were doing a series over there, which we called, the mini series, we called it HSP Connection, because we thought that's all it would be, a mini series. But actually, we enjoyed doing it so much that we decided we're going to have a whole brand new podcast where we are going to bring us, the HSP Connection, to everybody else, and hope you're going to enjoy it. We've listened back to the first, to the 10 episodes we did over on the other podcast, and we thought they were really valuable. So we've brought them here, but we're going to add a little twist now before you listen, because we're just going to give you a few reflections that we have on each episode. A few months after we first recorded them, and what we thought when we were listening back. Today's episode that you're going to hear is all about self-care and why radical self-care is a necessity for HSPs and not a luxury. So, Robbie, big episode.
Yeah, I love this
chat.
one.
Yeah.
I love all of them. So that people are going to get tired of hearing me say that. But yeah, just what you said, it's not a luxury, it's actually a necessity. But the one thing that I wanted to kick this intro off with is to remind people about self-compassion. That self-compassion is a form of self-care, first of all. I think they're very tied together. And as you're learning about your system, as you're trying out new things, be easy with yourself. Like, it's not about getting things perfect. It's not about doing everything that everyone else told you to do. It's literally about finding the things that work well for you and giving yourself the permission to try them and to do what feels good, and knowing that you're just doing your best in the moment. Yeah,
because it's really easy to get a bit uptight. That's not the word I want to use, but the right word is evading me at the moment. But to get really het up about, oh, am I doing this right? And I'm still not feeling any easier or better about things, so I'm not doing it right, I must be doing it wrong. No, it's very much, we all have our own journey with it, and we all need to try different things out. Yes, we might listen to what other people say and try a few of the things that they've tried, but it's really about listening to our own bodies and working out what works for us, because only we know how we feel.
That's absolutely right. And just reminding the listeners that our systems as highly sensitive people need things that are different from people who are less sensitive. And so again, just giving yourself permission to do what you need for your system. Can't stress that enough.
Yeah. And it can be it really takes a sort of a switch in the way you're thinking about it. I think at the beginning, I certainly felt that, because looking back, I never felt like I fitted in anywhere. So to then feel that I needed to do different things and to look out for myself in a way that I didn't see any of my friends or family doing. I felt that put me yet again in a different or other category. And it was like, oh God, here we go again. But actually, it really, something made me carry on though. My intuition knew that it was good for me and right, and I kept on. And rather than, I learned to celebrate my difference on the back of trying things that helped me feel better, realizing how much better I felt, realizing who the true me was, learning to like the true me, and thinking, oh, actually, I can celebrate this. I'm not broken like I always felt I was broken. I'm not broken. It's just my system is different. And I need to treat myself with compassion and kindness and listen to what I need. And as long as I get that, hey, I'm doing pretty well.
Absolutely. It's such a pretty good point. Yeah. I languaged it to myself as there's something wrong with me or I'm weak. When I wasn't able to just continue to carry on without taking care of myself, because that's what I did. And then my whole system crashed. And now I'm just like, oh, right. But if I take care of my system, then it allows me to help other people the way that I just really, really, really want to. And I get to feel good doing it instead of the way it occurred before, which was just like, oh, I want to, but I also feel terrible all the time.
Yeah. And it's little steps, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Just little things that make you feel better, that make you feel good, that hopefully, right, are going to make, trying little things and just little steps, and not expecting a big dramatic result, because you will get a big result, but over time.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
absolutely
so different to when I discovered, well, 6 years ago when I had my breakdown, and 2 years ago when I discovered I was an HSP. I'm thriving now. It didn't take that long, really, once I'd gone through all my therapy and all that stuff. But and it can feel like something else you have to do, but it's essential. And this is where, when we were talking about, yes, it can feel a lot, but this is where you came up with your, what is now our podcast catchphrase, isn't it? So what was it, Robbie? What were those immortal words that you came out with?
Well, it just came out at the time, and now I have to reference it because I'm like, oh, wait, what did I say? It's that it's possible, it's doable, it's worth it. And you're worth it, listener. Like, you're worth it. And these things that we're talking about they will fuel you. So yes, it's another to do, but they actually will help you get energy back. Right.
Yeah.
Also, just as an aside, it's very weird to hear myself quoted.
Because I've been quoting you nearly every episode since, haven't I?
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, well, that is cool and weird all at once, right?
Yeah.
I did want to ask you, Philippa, you mentioned in this episode about your cold water dipping or swimming.
Yeah.
And this was, we first recorded it in December, and you were saying, you were going and you were trying, didn't know if you were going to make it through the winter, but you were giving it your best to go. So now, as we're recording this intro, it is mid-April, and I wondered if you would give us an update. How's it been going?
Well, it got pretty cold.
Yes.
Apparently the lake where I swim was the coldest this winter that it's been for the last 5 years.
Oh my gosh.
I did it. I did do it.
Oh my gosh.
So I go with a friend, and we went 3 times a week all the way through the winter. We're still going 3 times a week. The water is now really warming. It's not warm. It's about 12 degrees Celsius at the moment. So we can now stay in for a decent swim. During the winter, we were literally dipping. At one point, it was, because it's salt water, obviously it doesn't freeze at 0 degrees Celsius. We were swimming in we dipped in -1. So so we've only got swimming costumes on. We do have gloves, neoprene gloves and neoprene boots, but we only have swimming costumes on. We don't wear wetsuits. There's nothing wrong with whether you have a wetsuit or not, but me and my friend have got plenty of padding. We don't need the wetsuit. And we did it. We're so proud of ourselves and so pleased that we've managed to do it. And I think for me, there's been a real lesson about trusting myself to know that I can do something that I think is going to be hard, but I can do it. And it's really given me a zest for more hard things, or to just do things, because I did that hard thing that I wasn't sure whether I could do. But so a lot has gone on over the winter, really, with the swimming. It's not just about the swimming or the dipping. So thanks for asking. And I'd completely forgotten I'd said that in this episode. So and I have listened back to it. So that obviously didn't register for me.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because it's just so a part of your life now. But yeah,
I'm just a cold water swimmer. That's it. I am one of those
amazing.
people who, have the long robes on and go everywhere in a bobble hat and with a massive bag full of kit. And feel like, yeah, that's me.
That's incredible.
Anyway, thank you for asking. Thank you for letting me reminisce about that. And I think we should let the listeners listen to the episode. It's really
Agreed.
important. Self-care, it's really the cornerstone, the first step to getting yourself in a good place, really. So here you go. So what are we talking about today, Robbie?
Philippa, today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is self-care.
Yes.
Yes. And I will say for me personally, self-care has been a journey. It's still something I'm learning to prioritize. But one of the first things I want to say off the bat is that self-care for HSPs is as important as regular sleep. Like it, because of how much information our systems process, we have got to find the things that work for us to help rejuvenate, restore, replenish, calm our system, all of those good things. So it's not a luxury. And the other thing I want to say about it is that kind of what you said already, things that are good for HSPs are good for the world. And so I personally believe that everyone would benefit from some more self-care, and the things that we're going to talk about today. It's just that HSPs, for many of us, it taxes us a little bit more than non-HSPs, or we'll see the symptoms sooner than non-HSPs.
Yeah. And that goes
Please.
back to the point that you made in one of our previous episodes that, like HSPs are like the canaries in the coal mine, aren't they? So,
Yeah.
the way that the way that life has become this fast-paced, always on, contactable, always doing things. People are busy, they're on their phones, they're on technology, we're always planning, doing. Well, as an HSP, you just can't do that. And we're gonna we'll talk a little bit about our journeys with having to come to realize that we can't do that. But like you say, all these things we're going to talk about, which are really good for HSPs, are actually really good for everyone, because I definitely believe that we would all be a bit better off if we. Now, I'm not, what I want to say there is slow down, but I've had a few clients who've said to me, "Oh, don't tell me to slow down. Everyone tells me to slow down." So it's like, okay, so we'll have to. That is what I want to say, but how can we say that in a different way? But it is about slowing the pace. It is slowing down. It is taking time for ourselves to be present, to notice what's going on around us, to rest, to digest. It's just taking time, and we would all absolutely benefit from that.
Yes, 1,000% to what you said.
Yeah.
And the predominant culture, at least in America here, is very work obsessed, right? It's very much like you were talking about, go, 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 go.
Yeah.
Right? Do. And then layering on the ways that women get cultured and talked to. I know for me growing up, it was absolutely the message, both overtly and covertly, that to love someone meant to put them before you, to do for others first.
Yeah.
And I have worked really hard with my therapist to unlearn some of that and to give myself permission to love myself first, which is actually one of the first things on my list for us today, which is permission, giving yourself permission to say, I'm going to take care of myself.
Yay. That was the first thing I had to learn in therapy as well. And it is It's a daily practice, isn't it?
Yes,
You have
yes.
to exercise that muscle.
100%.
So number one, I don't know, if we go, so first on your list is giving ourselves permission to, how did you put it?
To take care of
Yeah.
ourselves.
To put ourselves first, take
Put
care of
ourselves first.
ourselves, make ourselves a priority.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And, one of the ways that I've helped my brain accept this is the concept of sleep, kind of like I mentioned before, because humans need to sleep.
Yeah.
Right? I think most of us would agree with that. And having regular, healthy amounts of sleep, I mean, it's scientifically proven how helpful that is for our system. Now, we can survive on less sleep than is ideal. We could survive on interrupted sleep. There are periods of time where that happens for us, and it takes a toll on our system.
Yeah.
And so I look at self-care as a whole in the very same way, right? So I don't have to give myself permission to go to sleep. It's just something that I acknowledge is necessary, right, in order to function well. And so it's kind of how I approach self-care in general.
Yeah. So rather than delving into the individual things that we could talk about, and probably will come on to talk about as acts of self-care, what you're actually wanting to start off with is remind, or maybe, for the first time, tell people who are listening that self-care is absolutely essential. And you're talking here in the round, just like sleep, nutrition, water, shelter, especially for HSPs, but for everyone, really.
Yes.
Self-care, putting yourself first, looking after yourself, is really, really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we've, I'm sure, all heard the now overused metaphor about putting the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Yes.
Right. And it really is a wonderful visual. I mean, if you imagine that you're on that airplane scenario where the oxygen is going away and you're busily moving throughout the plane and trying to help everybody else, you're going to collapse. And then you probably will, in that scenario, maybe will die, but also then you're not able to help anyone else. So even if your motivation is, I want to help people, great. You got to start with you first. You've got to build up your own system first and give it what it needs.
And I couldn't agree more. And it has definitely been one of the perhaps hardest things I had to learn, but the most important. Because as you said, I think as women, we're particularly conditioned to put ourselves at the bottom of the list and look after everybody. Also, I mean, for me, coming from quite a traumatic childhood, I learned to put everybody else first. If that was my survival strategy. And there will be plenty of other reasons, I'm sure, why people learn to put others first. But what we're here to say is that really needs to be reversed.
Yes.
Yeah. Couldn't agree
100%.
more.
Yeah.
Fabulous point to start with.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for me, hand in hand with that is then checking in with yourself and asking, what do I need? And that was not a practice I had for most of my life. In fact, it was the opposite, where if I would feel tired, if I would feel hungry, if I would feel peopled out, if I would feel strung out, exhausted, any of those things, I would push it aside and be like, okay, but I don't have time for that. I've got to keep going. I don't have time to listen to that. I got to keep going. And I imagine some other people might be doing some similar things.
I'm pretty sure we know that people are doing similar things, and I certainly was. And like I said, that's another muscle that you have to exercise. And you know, I really have to work on that one. The not pushing through, the listening to the signals that my body is giving me, and learning. Okay, too much. I've got to rein it back in, and I've got to look after myself.
Yeah. Same. It's some days I feel fairly successful at that, and other days I was like, oh, whoops. There's some old patterns that came up again.
Yes.
You know, and I want to bring that up because I hope that no one listening ever gets the idea that the topics that we bring up are things that we do perfectly, because that is just laughable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, these are things that we have learned and are continuing to grow in, that find that they're really helpful for people, which is why we're talking about them.
Yeah, and you know, some of them are going to be things that you know, are your go-tos. Some of them will be my go-tos. You know, people might be listening who have completely different things, but the whole point is that we're just wanting to bring this information. But like you say, you know, we're still working on it. It's not, you know, it's not that we've got all this sorted, because we absolutely haven't, because it's a lifetime of conditioning that we're working on unraveling. And it's a really new way of being, isn't it?
Oh my
Putting
gosh,
yourself
yes.
first, listening to what your body needs, giving yourself what your body needs. Yeah, it's a little bit strange at the beginning.
It's so strange, Philippa. It's like the world has turned upside down. Like it, and it can even feel scary at some times. I remember in the early days practicing and that's how it felt. Like I was just like barely dipping a toe and asking my wife for some quiet time. And that's how it was at first. I would ask, you know, and be like, because I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want you to feel bad. And, you know, I'm so concerned with the other.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could feel really weird at first. And it's a practice, like you have mentioned a couple of times. It's things that we have to just keep practicing.
Yeah. And I think you make a very good point there. And we'll probably talk about it more in another episode, because I think this is probably an episode all to itself. But actually, as we start putting some of these things into practice, you know, it does rock our world a little bit. And,
Yeah.
you know, it does change our relationships a little bit with friends, with family, you know, with our loved ones. You know, it just changes them. I don't want to say it makes, certainly, I mean, for me, it's ended up really improving them, but that takes time. Yep. It does take time. But the whole point though is, you know, it is the discomfort, you know, at the time of getting used to putting yourself first, and getting used to, you know, perhaps the uneasy feeling you might have around it at the beginning. Yeah. It's embracing that, rather than staying stuck in this lifetime of putting everybody else first, where you're just you know, you're feeling more and more angry and sick and just unfulfilled.
Yes.
So, you know, whilst we're saying, you know, it can be a little weird, it can be a little strange. And I totally understand that if this is the first time anybody who's listening has heard this, you know, I get it. It might seem totally impossible, but we're just here to kind of say it's not impossible. We're not saying it's like, oh, you know, click your fingers and it's done, but it is absolutely worth it.
Yes, it's possible. It's doable. It's worth it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. What's next?
Well, one of the things that is kind of a go-to for me is just under the big bucket of figuring out what feels good. So checking in with my own energy and just starting to notice, like noticing, just even paying attention at all was different, like I mentioned, right? So noticing like where my energy dips throughout the day, or when I'm feeling tired, when I'm feeling energized, when, like, how does my body respond to this food or to being around these people or to going outside, like just noticing those things and starting to kind of take some mental notes about that.
Love that. It's really, it's a really important step, actually, because what works, what's going to work for you, for instance, might not necessarily work for me. So we do have to take notice, as you say, of the things that are happening for us that we can then go on to change. But we have no idea what needs changing until we've done that noticing bit.
That's right. Absolutely.
I'm trying
And I
to.
love what you said about that it will be different for each of us.
Yes.
So I've got lots of things to mention today just to get people's wheels spinning.
Yeah.
But to your point, none of these are have tos or one size fits all. They're just, they're just ideas to give you permission to find what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm trying to think of some of the things that, so I remember right at the beginning, I heard that, so I came to this self-care from a slightly different angle, because I came from it from unraveling my trauma, and I knew I had to calm my nervous system, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about how to keep our nervous system regulated and calm, because as HSPs, we are, our nervous system is more susceptible to sensory input, and mine had a lot of sensory input from my childhood trauma. So I sort of came to this self-care through a trauma lens at the beginning, and I had heard that in order to keep your nervous system regulated, it was a good idea to cut down on alcohol. It was a good idea to cut down on caffeine. And I was really keen to keep my nervous system regulated. So I tried that. So it's not that I was like, oh, well, that's what I've been told to do, I'm definitely going to do it. Because, like we've said, they're not all going to work for everybody. But I decided I'd cut out caffeine altogether to start off with. Now I have decaf, but I did cut out caffeine altogether. And I did cut out alcohol for quite a long time, actually. I'm not teetotal, but I don't drink much now. But I did absolutely notice really quite quickly what a difference that made. So, I mean, luckily for me, I landed on something quite useful quite quickly. But then again, if that hadn't worked, I could have tried other things. So it is about trying these things out and noticing. So noticing what it is we want to change, making some changes around that, and noticing if we're getting some benefit from it.
Yes. Yes. I love how you framed that. It's beautiful. And for me too, caffeine, I've noticed, I mean, I used to drink tons of caffeine, and I look back on it and it was probably self-survival. Like I was trying to get my system to go when it was done. Right. And I won't say that I never have caffeine, but it is on purpose. I'm paying attention to it. It's like it's part of my ritual with my wife on the weekends. We'll have a cup of coffee on Saturday and talk. And so,
love it.
It's intentional. Yes. And I have the whole rest of the day to just be with, because it gets me a little bit jumpy. So, yeah. I have lots of the rest of the day to calm myself down. But yeah, I think we're going to come back to very often is checking in with ourselves.
Checking in, yeah.
One of the things that I ran into right away in the beginning for me, which is was the concept of quiet time, alone time, or unplanned time. Those can, you know, take a little bit different forms for folks. But Julie Bieland she has stated kind of as a guideline, 1 hour a day and then 1 day a week. And so I'm going to remind people, this is not a have to, right? This is a this is a guideline, try it out. What I think is really cool about it is the notion that you can give yourself permission to have quiet time throughout your day where you don't have to be in charge of anybody else, where you could just have some time for yourself. And I absolutely recognize it's going to be different for people depending on what stage of life they're at, what, you know, kids and single parenting and jobs outside the house. Like, there's so many things. So I recognize that that is all real life as well. But there was something really profound to me about the permission. I'll go back to that again. Permission to find space for myself.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. And whether that's quiet, unplanned, both, but just time for yourself.
Yeah.
To be yourself, to check in with yourself, to do what you need, to do what you want.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. I think
and it can be
could be a bit.
Sorry, go ahead.
I know,
right?
Day a week could be a bit of a challenge. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
oh, a day a week. Okay, that is a bit of a challenge. But it's all a work in progress as well, isn't it?
That's right. And it could be absolutely incremental steps. And it could be something that you try out. You know, it could be something as simple as, like, if you have a daily morning routine that includes a shower, could you carve out an extra 10 minutes to just be in the hot water and just be present there for yourself in there, you know, instead of just the like, okay, I got to hurry and do this and go on to the next thing. Like, where can you carve out some space for yourself, even in what you're currently doing? Give yourself a little bit more space and just be in it.
Yeah, because water actually is a lot of people will find water quite soothing. Not everybody, but I do, you do. You know, I know not a lot of other people who do. So I love that idea of maybe just being a bit more intentional in your shower and being present in your shower, and sort of, you know, having some lovely smelling stuff to you know, to smooth on your body when you're in there, and just you know, feeling your skin as you're rubbing in whatever you're doing, just being present in that shower, and maybe giving yourself a little bit longer than you might do to just really be present in that shower.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was such a lovely image. And what also came to me when you were talking is, you know, as you're like smoothing something lovely into your skin, I mean, that is an act of love toward yourself. You know, self-love, self-care, they're intertwined for sure. Now, since we're on the water theme, I mean, something that I love to do is take a long, luxurious bath when I have the time. And so that's another way to just really, you know, let my senses relax. There's beautiful bath salts and, you know, different scents that are wonderful for me. And I know that you do something pretty spectacular with water too.
Yeah, so I too like a lovely long warm bath, but I also do go cold water swimming as well. So well, I say swimming, we're recording this in December and it's pretty cold now, so I'd say cold water dipping. You know, it's -1 here at the moment, and the water's about 3 degrees, so yeah, it's pretty cold. It's pretty cold, but that is there's something. So it takes me time to do that. It's a good 2-hour round trip to go and do that. And I know it just sounds beyond most people's comprehension that I do that to go and get in really cold water, but I feel so alive afterwards. And so weirdly, really relaxed. Not just because I'm so numb that I can't feel anything, but so much so that I go with my swimming buddy, we've had to stop going in the morning because we find we're struggling to work afterwards, get back in that go, because both of us are quite busy. And yeah, there's just something wonderful about it, I find. And it's about being in the water, like immersed in it. That's why I like a bath. Shower, I love a shower, but it's not quite the same. Mm-hmm. So, but that does really work for me.
And you've highlighted something so important, Philippa, which is, again, like, maybe, there 100% of people aren't doing this cold water dip or swim that you do, right? I don't know what percentage of people do it, but I don't think it's a mainstream activity. And it doesn't matter. Like, what you have found, that it is so beneficial for you, and so you prioritize it and you're doing it. And like, you recognize the benefit it's giving you, and so you've created space for that in your life. And that is a perfect example of what we're talking about here.
Yeah. And I've only been doing it for the last 5.5 months, actually. But it has really grabbed me. It really has. And it's reminded, it ticks so many boxes. It's reminded me how much I used to like being in the sea as a child. So there's a very childlike quality to it, and play. And it does make me feel alive in a way that nothing else does. So, and who doesn't want to feel alive? So and I get to go with my friend, so I'm in community with her while we're doing it. And also, it's quite a challenge because I've never done it through the winter before. And, I am a bit nervous before we go there, thinking, oh gosh, am I going to be able to do it today? Especially, if the temperature's dropped again. And afterwards, the feeling of having challenged myself, I am going to give myself permission to not go and do it when I don't want to. I'm not going to really push myself to do it, but there's never a day where both me and my friend don't want to go. So we encourage each other. Oh, there hasn't been a day so far when we've both not wanted to go. So, it's ticking lots of boxes for me. And it is part of my self-care.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Beautiful example. And I love how you mentioned the different boxes it's ticking, which, again, is something to watch out for when we're looking for ways to care for ourselves. What are we craving, and how do we get it?
Exactly.
And when, you mentioned the sea, which made me think of, just in broader terms, nature in general. And I like to call it big nature. So, going in with, like, I'm in Washington State in the United States. We have lots of places to hike. And so, being in old growth forests with giant trees, or being in mountains that have just been there forever, there's something just magical about that. Looking over the sea at the sunset, like, these things, every time I'm in nature in that way, it moves me somehow. It speaks to my soul. It calms my system. It's definitely a part of my self-care.
Yeah, I think, me too. And rediscovering the joy of nature in the last few years has been, a major thing for me. And I think being in nature has many qualities about it: connecting with the ground, realizing we are part of nature, and we are a small part of it as well. We can, I think sometimes you know, we can feel that everything is so big and weighty on our shoulders, and I don't know, I'm not quite sure quite what I'm trying to say here, but actually going out in nature reminds us that we are but a small part of it. And I don't think it's a bad thing to be reminded of that.
I could not agree more. Yes. It's something perspective shifting about it.
Yes, yes. And as HSPs, with the connection that we tend to have to nature, you know, I think as HSPs, we can get very upset by what is happening to nature.
Yes.
I mean, everybody can, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying only HSPs are the ones that are bothered about what is happening to the planet, but I do think we feel things very deeply. And I do think that a lot of HSPs are probably very concerned about climate change and what is happening to the environment. And I don't think it's also spoken about enough, that maybe we do have quite deep feelings about that. And there is perhaps some grief around what is going on, as well as definitely a lot of anxiety about what is going to go on. So I know, you know, I've sort of gone off on a little bit of a tangent, and you know, maybe that's another podcast episode, but I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, we are out in nature and we love being out in nature, and also we might be feeling a lot more about it.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up, because feeling our feelings, allowing for those feelings, making space for them, I feel is also part of self-care. You know, I definitely grew up learning to shove my feelings down, to try to quiet them, to make them wrong. And that's just not healthy. And so being able to express them, to listen to them, to make room for them, I think is so vital.
I totally agree. That was a vital part of my therapy and my, what, you know, the process that has brought me to where I am today, because I too learned to bury my feelings deep. But you know, they will come back to, you know, I talk about mine as like a volcano that just erupted one day, you know, and I kept mine down with food. That was my numbing of choice. Well, I say food, overworking, perfectionism, people pleasing, all those other socially acceptable addictions apart from the food. You know, but that's what I did. I ate my feelings, and you know, they did, it will only keep them down for so long. They just get louder and bigger, and eventually they're going to come back and bite you in the arse, basically.
They will absolutely find a way out. Yep.
They will.
Totally agree.
They will. So feeling your feelings, giving yourself that space and that time to feel your feelings at an appropriate time, you know, because we can't all go around feeling our feelings all the time, because most, you know, we have to function in the world, don't we? You know, but giving ourselves that time and space, with some support, maybe with a therapist, you know, maybe with a coach, maybe just with a, you know, a great friend who is quite prepared to listen and not try to fix, but just will be with us while we feel our feelings. And maybe we can do it by ourselves, but give ourselves that time and space.
100%. And you mentioned some other tools right there: counselors, good friends.
Yeah.
You know, I cannot say enough how important it has been for me to surround myself with other HSPs, you know, to develop HSP friendships, to get support from HSP coaches and an HSP therapist. Like, these things have been life-giving for me. And I think they're really useful tools.
Couldn't agree with you more. And the, you know, the HSP community that we're part of is just such an important part of my life now, because that is a space that we can be part of, and just know that we're understood, and know that we don't have to explain ourselves, and everyone just gets it.
Yes,
It's just such a special place.
it really is. It really is. HSPs out there, find your community.
Yeah.
And communities.
Yeah.
And we'll have some links in the show notes of places for you to check out.
Yeah.
Because yeah, find your people.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. And that's not to say that non-HS peoples can't be the best of friends, because they absolutely are and can be. And I think it's vital for HSPs to find other HSPs to be in community with. Truly, truly. And I think another helpful tool for me is in working through my feelings, as we were talking about, kind of giving them space. And then also a tool I use to kind of check in with myself is journaling, writing, like getting the inside out, giving space for it to come forward. I know you've done a bit of writing yourself, Philippa.
I have. I'm an avid, or I used to be. I dip in and out of journaling now. Actually, I did when I think the writing you're referring to is my book. So when I decided I was going to write my book, I kind of didn't know where to start, and I'd had a copy of The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron on my shelf for years. Somebody recommended it, I bought it, never read it. So I decided to read it, and I worked through it. So it's a 12-week program, and I worked through it week after week, and that's where I started doing the morning pages. So I started journaling. I mean, that's all your morning pages are, really. And I started doing that, and the freedom that can be felt from a good journaling session where you really work through things is incredible. And not all journaling sessions are like that. Sometimes I could write for a week and not really have an aha moment, but then an aha moment would come. And like you say, it's about getting what's inside out. It for me, I think talking does it as well as journaling, and I think that's why I don't need to journal quite as much now, because I have this podcast and I have people who understand me and I understand them, who I can talk to. But I definitely process as I'm talking, and people who've listened to my podcast for a while will have heard me process as I'm actually in the middle of recording an episode. But I do the same when I'm journaling. I'm processing it, and I'll sort of think, oh, I don't know, like, feeling a bit out of sorts today. I wonder what that's about. Is it about this? No, that doesn't feel right. Is it about that? That doesn't feel right. Is it about that? Yes, that's what it's about. So, and there's no right or wrong way to journal either. I think some people can feel that a bit intimidated by journaling, but it's literally about pouring out of you what's in you.
Yes. Well stated. Yes. There's no rules to it. There's no grammar police that's going to come read your journal and tell you you've done something wrong. There's,
Exactly.
Spelling doesn't count.
Nope.
Format doesn't count. Like, just whatever wants to come out, just giving it a space to do that. It can be really beneficial.
Yeah. In fact, I've never read any of my journals back yet.
Have you not?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I bet that would be interesting.
It might be. Yeah, I'm just looking at the one I started there. Maybe I might. I mean, who knows what pills of wisdom there might be in there? But
yeah,
or a lot of details about what I had for my tea or something like that. But no, I don't really write about that. But if you do write about that, that's fine.
that's right.
Yeah, there is no wrong or right, and like you say, it doesn't matter what you write, how you write it. I would just say that there's something magic about pen and paper, pen or pencil on paper. There is something, apparently it uses a different part of your brain than when you use a keyboard. Mm-hmm. So an electronic journal is not quite the same. And I would definitely agree with that. The whole writing it and seeing it appear on the page, I don't know, is all part of the process.
I completely agree. That was true for me as well.
Yeah.
And caveat to anybody out there, if if your way into journaling is using a keyboard, use the keyboard. Like, just do the thing, right? Do the thing. But there is something 100% magical about pen to paper.
Yes. And you very rightly point out that that's not to say about anybody, you know, to anybody who is actually doing it electronically, that that's not right or that's not good enough. It's like, you know, as Robbie says, if it works for you, then stick with it.
Yes.
But anybody who wants to give pen or pencil on paper a go, give it a go. Yeah, see what happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
See if you feel a difference.
Yeah.
One of the other things I had on my list is developing a practice of gratitude. And you know, I've done it different ways. I have like challenged myself to do it like daily, you know, write 3 things that I'm grateful for, those types of things, gratitude journal. I didn't stick with any of those things, to be honest. But what I did find was that because I made space for it, it's now a tool that I can pull out. And the way I use it, I mean, it will just spontaneously happen if I am just in awe of something. Like, the gratitude is just there.
Yeah.
But then I also use it on purpose if I find that I am not able to see anything bright, you know, like where everything is just like, ugh.
Yeah.
I will challenge myself. I mean, I will give space to those feelings first, and then I will challenge myself and say, okay, well, what are 3 things we can be grateful for? And it always just starts like a chain reaction. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, those things are shitty, but also all of these things are also amazing.
Yeah.
And it's just a wonderful reminder for my system. It helps me.
Yeah. And it interrupts that sort of, like you say, it's important to feel your feelings, but also we don't always have the space, the time, the energy to be able to stay in those feelings for a long time. And I think turning to gratitude, like there are lots of other ways of doing it, can be a bit of an interrupter, really, and can bring us to a not quite so shitty place, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The interrupter. That's exactly the right word.
Yeah.
Yes.
So gratitude journaling, gratitude practice has never been a thing for me. Really interesting. I know, gratitude is the attitude, and, write 3 things every morning and 3 things before you go to bed. Never been on my radar that is something that I want to do, weirdly, because I've tried loads of things. I do think, like you, I think certainly being out in nature and the whole being in awe and wonder and gratitude for the amazing whatever it is before me, sort of, it does come very naturally. As does, I don't know, walking my dog and just feeling the sun on my face and just stopping and taking that moment. I'm not necessarily thinking, oh, I'm really grateful for that, but I am drinking it in. That is a moment for me to really savor. And, that is just one of those joyful moments in the day. So I think probably I might say I've got more of a finding the joy practice, which is a very similar, it's a similar thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, we might find gratitude and joy in slightly different things, but it's about finding those good moments, isn't it?
Yes. And I love that the gratitude thing is something you're like, no. But joy was the thing you could go, yeah. Yes, now that is something that would be fun to look for. Yes. So again, it's another example of find the thing that works for you. Find the thing that's lighting you up, right? Because we do get messages, gratitude's fucking everywhere. And you're like, no, thank you. It's not really, but joy. And I also, as you were describing, kind of like being there with your dog and the sun, to me, that's mindfulness also, right? It's just being present in what is happening. And that is another tool that I've got in my toolbox.
Yes.
Mindfulness, like when I'm feeling myself getting a little, I don't know what the word is, but it untethered a little bit, or a little bit tired. It's not exactly it, but it's like feeling untethered, I guess is the closest word for me. It's a reminder to, okay, wait, stop a second. Like, let me get back into my body. And I mean, it could be something as simple as like rubbing my fingertips together. I'm like, hey, I'm here in this present moment. I can feel myself. And then it can expand outward toward, what is around me, looking at the nature. Nature is such a helpful tool for so many practices for me. Yeah, so mindfulness, I feel, can be really helpful.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love that. Rubbing your fingers together. That's so, we can all do that.
Yeah.
That we can all do that, and nobody else really needs to notice we're doing it. So,
That's right.
As does sort of, I remember when I was a lawyer, and if I was in a really boring meeting, I'd end up having to sort of pinch myself to
Yes.
stay awake. So,
Yes.
I mean, it's a similar kind of thing, except it's not like doing it to go, so that I stay awake, but it to just to remind yourself that to come back into your body in the present moment, isn't it?
It's 100% what it is. Yes.
Yeah. But rubbing your fingers gently is a much kinder and more gentle way of doing it. But again, that can be an interrupter as well.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And I know a lot of people who will use like a band on their wrist and flick that. That's really good for anxiety as well, just to bring you back into the moment.
100%. I'm not good with pain, so that one wouldn't be my go-to.
Yes.
But rubbing fingers is another, like anything that gets you into your body. So the snapping of your wrists, rubbing your fingers, those things can be super helpful. And which reminds me of another tool that I used, which is not inconspicuous at all, which is that I love the finger rubbing for that reason. I could be anywhere, anybody could be around me, and no one has to know I'm doing anything. Right?
Yes.
But a very conspicuous tool, but very powerful, is EFT or tapping.
Yes.
Like I have found that to be super helpful for me in processing emotions, especially anxiety, fear, and it's used for veterans, for folks suffering from PTSD, which for a lot of HSPs we are. We have either had some capital T trauma in our lives, or our body is processing lower T trauma in a way that is really harmful for us, and tapping can be super helpful for that. Is that a tool that you are familiar with?
I've tried tapping. I've watched quite a few videos of people tapping, and I've tried tapping on the spots, and it didn't really do much for me at the time I tried it, but I was trying it just out of interest as opposed to needing it. I think it's something that if I needed a new tool, it would definitely be something that I tried. It's just not something that came into my radar at a time that it was useful for me. But I know a lot of people think EFT is fantastic. So, and it's really easy to do. It's really, you can do it for free. I mean, everything that we've talked about so far is free, apart from if you need a therapist or somebody to be your support. But everything else we've talked about is very much within your control and largely free.
Yeah, that's right. The thing about tapping EFT that makes it really helpful for me is the words that you use to pair with what you are tapping. So let's say, for example, I'm feel like maybe I led a class and now I'm feeling like I didn't do a great job. I'm feeling like I've let myself down or something. then while tapping on these certain parts, you say something like, even though I'm feeling, and then you name your feeling, even though I'm feeling like I screwed up, even though I'm feeling badly about myself, I love and accept myself. And that phrase, and you say it over and over. So it's like, even though I'm feeling anxiety, I love and accept myself. Even though I'm feeling less than, I love and accept myself. That I love and accept myself while you're tapping on these parts of the body, which interrupts, I don't know the science behind it, but it's out there in the world. You can go read about it.
It is.
It changes things.
Yeah.
It changes the wiring. It's super helpful.
Yeah. And you know, so that's actually a couple of things that we've talked about already rolled into one, isn't it? So it's an act of self-care because it you know, it's acknowledging the feelings that you're feeling, and it's also, you know, it's declaring your self-love, you know. So, you know, what's not to like about it?
Right.
What's not, what you know, to not, you know, what is there to not love about it? And you know, there are so many guided tapping things, not a great word,
videos
on YouTube,
and
videos on YouTube and stuff. So like there are guided meditations, like there is mindfulness. There's so much available on YouTube, and actually finding ones that are guided while you're getting used to these things and having a go at, you know, there's just a whole, so much out there.
Yes. Guided meditations have been super helpful for me, especially like you said, especially starting out.
Yeah.
Because starting out is generally when our system is still like really hyped up.
Exactly.
And so for me, that meant my brain was just going, right? And it's, I mean, quieting it down at all seemed impossible. But there was something super helpful about a guided meditation where it was taking me somewhere. I could be there with that person, you know, and just listen to them. Yeah, I found that to be super helpful for calming.
And I think with the key there is finding a voice, trying them until you find a voice that you like, that you find soothing. Just because somebody recommends one to you doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you, because, you know, we'll all like different voices.
Yes. Yes.
It's really important to give yourself the best chance, you know, of finding things that work for you, and that means, you know, giving lots of things a go.
I love that you brought that up. I'm 100%. It's just like with medical practitioners, right? Just find the thing, keep trying, which can feel hard in the moment when you're already spent, but it's worth it. Like find the thing that actually works for you, or things. And so with meditation, you're right. If there are there are some voices that other people have said, oh my gosh, you have to listen to this person, is amazing, and it's so jarring for me. I'll be like, well, that is not soothing to my system. But I listened to Anna Calm, and it's like medicine, like pouring over my body. So it's, yes, find the voices that work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this is quite a big subject.
Oh yeah.
Because I guess we're not down, you know, I guess you've got more on your list yet.
A little bit, yeah.
Yes. So I'm wondering whether we do this in 2 parts, actually. Because this has already been quite, I think this has been a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering whether we make this into 2 parts. What do you think?
Well, you know what I'm wondering? Like I'm looking at my list. I have mentioned most things on my list. I would say I have 2 more things. Do you think we could do just 2 more things really quickly, or do you want to do a whole nother one?
No, I think we could do 2 more things. I just wondered because, you know, I love that this has not been about, I mean, it has been about taking a bath, but it's not been about taking a bath. You know, it's been about if water really works for you, and giving yourself the time and space to do that. And it has been about meditation, but you know, it's not just been a list of mindfulness, meditation, take a bath, you know, do all these things. It's all been bound together in this beautiful package of working out what is right for you and giving yourself that time and space to work out what works
and
for you.
Permission.
Yeah.
And permission
To do it. Yeah. Go on then. What else is on the list?
Well said as usual. So the last two things I had on my list, one we've started to touch on, medical practitioners. So therapists, yes, but just in any area, seek out what help you need to support your system. And that could be through Western medicine, it could be through other avenues. It doesn't matter. Find the things that work for you and give yourself permission, again, to find the things that work for you. I mean, one of the things I do for my self-care is I take my medicine every month, and it helps me with my migraines. And it's part of my self-care because, I need to be able to function. And so I've given myself permission to do that. And I also seek out, so that's a Western medicine thing. And I also seek out a lot of alternative things. And I, look at what supplements help my body. And what else have I done? Reiki, and I've done acupuncture, and I've done chiropractic care. And, just again, find the things that work for you.
I've tried all sorts too. Shiatsu, I really love shiatsu treatment. That is amazing, which reminds me, I've not been to see her for a while. But yeah, give yourself that time and space and things that, provided, a lot of this, certainly here in the UK, a lot of that one would have to fund privately. So, we don't all have money to spend on those extra things, but if we do, give yourself permission to spend some of that money on you and make you feel better, feel the best that you can do. We all deserve to feel the best that we can, not just okay.
Yes.
The best that we can feel.
Yes.
It's important.
Yes. Yes.
Go on then. What? And
I almost want to leave it there. That's so lovely.
Okay. So, but you mentioned GPs, and you've already mentioned Julie Beeland, and Julie is very keen on people in her HSP community understanding that not all medical practitioners are aware of the HSP trait, and in fact most of them aren't. And we might have to learn to advocate for ourselves with our medical practitioner. And it might be that we can't take the same doses of medicine that other people can take. It might be that we need a different medicine. It might be there might be all sorts of reasons why the way that they usually treat patients might not work for us. And it's really important to understand that that is not a failing in us. It's not anything that we need to apologize for. It might mean that it's something that we need to be on it. We need to take our research, and we need to go and talk to our doctor and say, actually, this is what is happening for me. I think this is why it's happening. And I might need a different treatment. But it's really important to be aware again of what works for us and make sure that we stand up for ourselves.
Oh my gosh, such a huge topic there, Philippa, and so important. Yes, advocating for ourselves, and sometimes educating our medical practitioners.
Yes.
But absolutely not taking it as there's something wrong with us. It's just that we have been an under researched group of folks. And so things don't necessarily work on us the same way as you mentioned. Very good point.
That's right. And that's why we're here. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast, because we want more people to know about it and more people to be better equipped to advocate for themselves, really.
Yes. Well said. Okay, two more quick things that I think could each be topics on their own, but we'll just mention them quickly as far as this list. One is boundary setting. I think, right?
That is absolutely a topic all on its own. But yes, boundaries, really.
But it's a part of self-care, truly, like learning how to say no, learning how to carve out the space you need for yourself, and not having to feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other last one is finding the things that light you up, which is kind of similar to what you're saying about joy.
Yeah.
Like, if you can make your profession something that lights you up, brilliant. If you're not able to be on that journey right now, what is a part of what you're doing that you can find joy in? Or outside of how you make money, are there ways that you can give of your talents, give of the parts of yourself that are really meaningful to you, and do it in a meaningful way? Like, man, that fills me up so much.
Yeah.
And it's super important part of self-care. And it could be a whole topic on its own, because it's it's a journey and it's a whole bunch of stuff. But
it is. I feel like nearly all of those individual things that we've talked about could be a whole topic on its own. And who knows, maybe we might delve into those a little bit more. So if anybody's listening actually and is thinking, oh yeah, I'd like you to talk a bit more about that, let us know,
yes.
Get in touch. There will be ways to contact us in the show notes. So get in touch and let us know, because we love to talk about this. So, if you want us to talk about something in particular, let us know. That's music to our ears, really.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So I think we'll leave that here for today. This has been a nice long episode with lots of juicy information in it. Thank you to Robbie for putting that list together. I totally failed, and Robbie did a brilliant job. Thank you for leading us in that today. And yeah, we'll leave it there, and we'll be back with another episode soon, won't we?
Yes.
Thanks for listening to HSP Connection. If you've enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Also, we'd really appreciate it if you could rate the podcast and share it with anyone you think might be interested. It helps others find us. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a review.
To get in touch with us, you can email us at hspconnectionpodcast@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you with your thoughts and comments on the episodes and any suggestions you have for future topics and guests.
We are both HSP coaches and speakers. And to find out more about Robbie, go to Robbie Lee, that's leigh.com.
And to find out more about Philippa, go to safeandsupported.co.uk. See you next time.